Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We are the friends you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, would you consider giving a gift today to ensure that those on the path of infertility always have a friend in their back pocket? Thanks for your support, and let's dive in. Anne, founding mama, how are you today, Anne?
I'm doing great, Jillian. Great to be here.
Yeah, so it's always so fun to chat with you. And today we have along one of your dear family members, your niece, Maria. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm really so excited. Listeners, today we are going to talk about the relationship between aunts and nieces and what that entails, right, on this journey of infertility and the fruit that can come from that. And I'm really so excited. We've been talking about this as a team for a while to dive into the many different kinds of relationships that we have. And I think this is a great way to kick it off. So Maria, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself, however much you're comfortable sharing?
Sure. My name is Maria Koshut. I share the same last name as Anne. And I live in Maryland in the Chesapeake Bay area. I'm an academic librarian here. I'm single, don't have any of my own children, but I have a very large extended family, including 6 nephews now and 1 niece, and many, many aunts and uncles.
Yes, we joke a lot, right? I mean, joke and also just talk about like large Catholic families is often when we get married, like the picture, that's in our heads. And Anne definitely married into a very large Catholic family. And remind me, Keith is one of how many?
Just 16.
Just 16.
And he's a twin. And yes, they were born on April 1st. You can't make that up.
Wow. Well, I just forgot about that. That is something.
Yeah.
But for most of us who are listening to this episode, that large Catholic family is not necessarily one that we have biologically of our own, but there are so many incredible relationships within our nuclear family and our extended family. And so today we're going to dive into that aunt and niece relationship. And I think it's a really great way to talk about spiritual motherhood, because oftentimes in the infertility world, spiritual motherhood feels like kind of a second class motherhood, like a discount sort of motherhood that feels like, oh, you haven't been able to have biological children, but you're still a spiritual mother. And it doesn't feel as if though, like, part of the feminine heart, the feminine genius is motherhood, is fruitfulness, is life-givingness in whatever capacity that we are serving. And so I think this aunt-niece relationship is really a great one to dive into. So Anne, I'll start with you as an aunt. To many, but especially here, Maria, how have you seen spiritual motherhood lived out in your relationship with Maria and others in your family?
Yeah, actually, it's been really cool. So, Keith's family is obviously very large. My family is small. It's just my brother and I. And my brother is a priest. He's celibate. And so I didn't have any nieces or nephews. And so, marrying into this big family, I just feel like I got this whole bonus family along with it. It was interesting because we married later in life. So most of the nieces and nephews were already adults. They were in college or they were older. Some of them were little. But so coming into that, for me, it was like a very different kind of relationship. And that has borne itself out over these last 15 years that Keith and I have been married. And it was really quite unexpected. The relationship that I ended up developing with Maria and with some of my other nieces, I guess I didn't expect that kind of a closeness. And because my own aunts and uncles were obviously quite a bit older than me. I have good relationships with them, but it was always like my elder,
Mm,
kind of
mm,
thing. But
mhm,
but with Maria and with all the rest, there feels very much more like a friendship in many ways. But also that spiritual motherhood that you're talking about, that is definitely an element of it. And I'm going to leave it there because I think we're probably going to tease that out a little bit more. But yeah, it has been so amazing and life-giving and fun for me to have these nieces and nephews.
mm. Thanks for sharing that, Anne. Maria, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, and from your perspective as a niece and having Anne as an aunt. How have you seen that spiritual motherhood, or what has that looked like from your perspective? And I really like that adult. Relationship that was not my experience, so I'd love to hear more from you, Maria, about your relationship with Anne.
Yeah, so Aunt Anne married my Uncle Keith. So I should say that my Uncle Keith is my godfather. So a special uncle to me. And
Mm.
they married 15 years ago. And I do remember it was such a fun wedding because there was so
Mm.
much family. We were so excited for both of you. And I was talking about this before we started recording about how I did a little, research on my future aunts. And I was like, she's so cool. She's super Catholic and she's a speaker. And like, wow, we're getting a gem for an aunt. So it's true. So I feel honored to have her as my aunt. But I think, yeah, just that friendship has really developed over the past 15 years. And we have our little like side chats, like when you're from a big family, you're from a big family when you have many iterations of group chats.
Yes. Yes.
So we have like you have all these different combinations. And they ebb and they flow with the different seasons, but you got to have, your Pascha line. That's one of the ones we have when you text about the Pascha bread you're making that year for Easter. Um,
Mhm.
so
Love that.
in all seriousness though, like I think the cool thing about our relationship is it's both deep and lighthearted, like hopefully that I think that will come
Mm.
out throughout this episode.
Mhm.
But having someone to turn to when I need advice or encouragement, just sort of to talk through things with someone who is a part of the family, but removed enough to have like a bit of a different objective perspective, has been like really, really valuable for me. And so I think
Mm.
that's one of the many ways that
Mm.
that relationship has played out.
I love that. I think it's so natural, right, for a librarian to have researched the aunt that's marrying into the family. That's so fun, and I think yeah, also can relate totally to all the group chats and who's where and the seasons of life. And I think that that's so beautiful that families can connect in different seasons and in different kind of groups of people, just based on what's happening. And I'd love to dive in a little bit practically. Let's get a little bit deeper. And what are some of the ways that you maybe didn't even expect, right? You didn't know, especially as you said, didn't have nieces or nephews on your side of the family. And so what are some of the ways that you have lived out spiritual motherhood with Maria and some of your other nieces? What does that look like on a daily basis and annual basis in their different seasons of life? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, I mean, we're all spread out, Maryland
Mm.
and Virginia and Pennsylvania and Eastern Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. So definitely when we get together, when there is a reunion or, there's some reason that we're all together, it's just such a beautiful time, like for friendship, for community, and just like to check in with each other. And I think we just always seem really happy to see each other. It's just always really fun. But there is also, as Maria said, that element of like being able to share with each other. If one of us is going through a difficulty, whether it's Maria or any of the other nieces, it's true. Like we have these text chains, and sometimes they'll be super funny, most of the time probably. But at other times, they will be talking about maybe difficulties that we're going through or the need for prayer. And just ever since I've been part of this family, I've just felt so honored to be able to receive that they would come to me and ask me for prayer or ask me, not even for advice. I don't want to say that, but just like to be a sounding board, to maybe give a little bit of counsel from, my experience, from mistakes that I have made, that I've learned from. And so, yeah, it's been really fulfilling to be able to do that. But I also want to say that the reverse has happened as well. You said, Jillian, we talk about spiritual motherhood a lot, and like sometimes it feels like nobody really knows what that means. And like they think it just means, kids, like things that you do with kids. But we all need to be spiritually mothered. And, I was thinking earlier today about a time, several summers ago when I was going through a really difficult time where I was just feeling so much anxiety. I was having panic attacks every day. Like this went on for a couple of months at a time. And it was a really, really hard time. And I got on that text chain. And I remember specifically with Maria and our niece Colleen. And sometimes it was like every day. And like, hey, I'm drowning here. Like, I don't know what to do. And they would pray for me, or they would say, hey, try this. Or, here's a supplement that might work for you that has helped me. And that was a time when they really mothered me. And that was something very unexpected. But I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful to have them.
I love that. And I'm so appreciative that you pointed out both sides, that we all are mothers and desire and need mothers, and to receive that from each other, I think is a beautiful gift. And sometimes we might miss that if we're not open to it and expecting that from our relationship. Sometimes we might miss that reciprocal care and that. So Maria, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What has being mothered, right, the spiritual motherhood from Anne looked like for you as a niece? And then maybe, you, as you said in the opening, you are also an aunt. And so what are some of the ways that you have carried on the ways that you have been spiritually mothered to those in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of the things we've already talked about, Anne's talked about, and I've talked about, just like that friendship, that being there, when you're going through something difficult. I know that you've talked about this on your podcast before, but just to kind of hone in on it, that particular availability, there's been times where I just really needed help with something. And my Aunt Anne and Uncle Keith were able to like just literally drop everything and come help me. And that's such a beautiful charism, to be able to have those people in your life who can do that. And I think those that struggle with infertility and do not have children, you have that space in your life to be present. And like that should not be underestimated, because like those moments in my life where I just like really, I needed help. I needed a listening ear, and they were present to me, and that just meant so much to me. So I think that element of availability, and any sort of like assistance. So like they helped me with a move, for example, and just like pitched in, and that was like super helpful. So like those are some just like practical ways, I guess. But also I really wanted to just emphasize the being there for listening and for counsel and for like just kind of like a safe space to talk through things. And like I know that I can share things with Anne and she'll keep them in confidence, and like I said, I just think you have a wise perspective, Anne, and can provide like helpful feedback and guidance. So I've really leaned into that. And because that's meant so much to me with Aunt Anne, and then I have a few other aunts on both sides that I'm close with, like I realize how valuable that is. And something I was thinking about as we were getting ready to talk is that I think we can think about that as like a nice extra. Like it's a nice extra to have in your life, but it's actually essential. It's really essential to have that. And it's been essential in my life, invaluable. And so because that's been so invaluable to me, like I want to be that for my niece and nephews. I want to be a place where they can come if they need advice or they just want to talk about something or they need support or they need to be seen. I think just like being seen and seeing your nieces and nephews, like that's a gift you give as well that plays into the spiritual motherhood.
My gosh, I love all of that. I'm going to write all that down in the journal when I re-listen to this episode. Yeah, I think the availability and the essential piece there, I think, yeah, cannot be overstated. That sometimes that availability, sometimes radical availability is how we talk about it at Springs, is just, it's a really beautiful opportunity for a couple or even, individually to say that I do have maybe extra time that other families or another couple just doesn't have because of this season that I am in. And I can give the gift of my presence or my time or my counsel because I do have that space to provide. And that is such a beautiful gift that I think is so good to recognize and also not to expect or abuse. Sometimes there is an expectation from more so I would say maybe like the professional side where like, oh, you don't have things to do at home, so you should be able to give all of your time here. That's not what we're talking about. But this really beautiful like self-gift of, time and love, I think is so good. And then the essential piece, man, yeah, I think I probably have most in my past thought about aunts or other women, spiritual mothers in my life as the cherry on top, sort of that bonus. But instead, like, no, this is actually essential to my development and my community and the growth of my heart. And so I love that so much. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about either of those two things.
Well, actually, I have a thought about something else that Maria said that really hit the nail on the head. Maria, when you said about creating a safe space, and like it really just occurred to me, that's what a mother does, right? Like that's who a mother is. A mother is a safe space. And so, particularly for our listeners, for our community, those women, those couples who don't have children, who are struggling with infertility, or who don't have, a family as large as they would like, hear that, listen to that. Like you can be a safe space for another person. Like you can do that right now. I mean, that's incredible. That's at the heart of spiritual motherhood. And I think spiritual fatherhood too, right? Like a spiritual father is like a place of protection and security. And for anyone who's listening now and sort of thinking like, oh, I have these motherly qualities and nothing to do with them. Like, no, you can be that. You can be that right now, whether it's for your own nieces and nephews, or maybe for your coworker, maybe for a parent. Everybody needs to be spiritually parented in some way. So, yeah, that's huge, Maria. I'm so glad that you said that. I think that really kind of breaks this whole thing wide open.
Yeah, and I think too, like, it's important, and maybe this is going to come up either way, but like to talk about how it's not like a replacement for having your own biological child or children.
Right.
So I think that's important to acknowledge. It's not, okay, this is like the consolation prize, this type of relationship.
Yep.
but it is really its own beautiful thing. And it's a gift. Like, and I feel like I'm still like praying through this and learning it in myself as an aunt. But it's a gift to have that like sort of relationship set apart. Like that is a beautiful gift in itself. And it's really rich. And there's things that we can give and we can receive in that specific relationship where we do have that more availability. I just think that we can take that for granted, but it can be like its own, I just don't know how to explain it, but it can be its own distinct relationship because we have that availability. And
Yeah.
that's a blessing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to, for those who are thinking, okay, well, I'm actually not an aunt. I don't have nieces. I would love to hear from the both of you, maybe some other ways that you have been spiritual mothers that maybe have been a fruit of having an aunt or being an aunt or not. Maybe it's professionally or just other relationships that you have in your life. What are some other, Anne, I'll start with you. What are some other ways that you have lived out the spiritual motherhood in your life?
Well, yeah, and as Maria was just talking, I was thinking about my own relationship with my aunts and uncles. I don't have any uncles left anymore. Sadly, they have all passed, and I only have a few aunts left, my mom's sisters. And one of the things that I think having these nieces and nephews and being in this relationship has done for me is to help me to be a better niece, right? So I think, like, in a way, like their example and my ability to interact with all of them as the aunt has helped me to look at my own family, my own aunts, and I think to look at our relationship differently. And, I have one of my mom's sisters is a widow, and she never had children herself. And so, Keith and I have really done a lot, as much as we can, to be with her. So we are with her on holidays whenever we can be. Keith goes over there when it snows so he can shovel, or every year at Christmas he goes and buys a wreath and he takes it over to Aunt Annie, and I think it's helped me to be a better niece. But also, see, this is the interesting, like, circular nature of all of this, right? Because in trying to be a better niece, I also have this opportunity to spiritually mother her in this example, right? Because we can be available to take her to a doctor's appointment if she needs, or just be with her on a holiday. And so again, it's that, like, it's that interplay, it's that two sides. It's not just, one role. It's how these two roles almost kind of feed each other.
It's just so beautiful because I think, again, just talking about that reciprocity, I think you can miss that sometimes in seeing that every one of those relationships that we have has the opportunity to offer motherhood and that care and that safe space, no matter the age or the nature of that relationship. So that's so beautiful. And I am sure I've heard many stories of your Aunt Annie, and I'm sure she is so grateful for that, to have those who are intentionally wanting to be with her and care for her and check in with her, I think is such a beautiful gift. Maria, what about you? What are some other roles besides, niece and aunt that have looked like spiritual motherhood for you?
I think working in education, certainly, working with students, being present, available, a good listener. And then also like my friends and their children. I think most of us have friends with children, even if we don't have blood relative nieces and nephews. So there's that way of being a spiritual mother in those relationships. And I think one thing for me as an aunt with my nephews and niece that I kind of noticed is I think something you bring as an aunt and a spiritual mother is the ability to delight in them.
Mm,
And
mhm,
then with me as a niece, be delighted in, because you have a bit more capacity to see and focus, on,
mhm,
outside of your just immediate family or your immediate children. And so I think that could be your own nieces and nephews, but also certainly like other children in your life, whether it's in your parish, you're teaching CCD, students who you teach, neighbors, but just to really like see them for who they are. And that's, I think, definitely a feminine gift that we bring to the world, is just seeing the individuality of each of these children or, adults you're mentoring, and being able to see their gifts, call out their gifts, encourage them.
mhm.
I know, Anne, you've been that to me, just like naming my gifts, encouraging me in different areas. And so I think that certainly that reaches out into the larger community and the larger world.
I can relate to that so much, Maria. I was thinking of a particular brother and sister-in-law who have 3 children, and sometimes, you know, I mean, their parents are lovely and wonderful, and sometimes like parenthood is a lot, right? There's so much happening, and so I have really loved to recognize when there's a really special moment or something that they do that, as you said, is so delightful, and sharing that, not only acknowledging that with the child, but sharing that with the parents who can sort of like fall in love again with their vocation and remember that they're doing a great job and their children are lovely and beautiful and growing. And so I really love that. And if I was thinking of some other maybe relationships, and one of my sister-in-laws, I think, has been a really great like sort of form of spiritual motherhood for me. When I first got married, there was a lot of, even though I was just a few years younger than some of them, there was a lot of talk of like, oh, you're so young, you'll learn one day, kind of conversations that were really hard for us to navigate. And now these older siblings have seen that not only have I been through actually quite a bit in my life, but age does not necessarily equate the amount of wisdom someone has and or perspective that someone might be able to offer. And so there's been some really beautiful, deep relationships and conversations that have happened in our home that we can, again, and as you were talking about, create this safe space and environment for them to talk about their marriage, to talk about what they're struggling with, in motherhood. And even if I can't quite relate to that, it's still a place for them to talk about it. And I can, if I'm able to, offer some, perspective or pray with them. Just sit there and listen is often what people need, not necessarily, counsel is always great. But sometimes it is just that listening ear that allows someone to just process and kind of come out on the other side feeling more confident. I love those examples. Before, ladies, I really love this conversation, and my brain's going in a couple of different places. I want to, right, our listeners could be aunts. They likely do have aunts. They might not be aunts, right? That just might not be their relationship. But I think if someone is trying to figure out maybe, and this can just be for any of those, really any woman who is trying to add this spiritual motherhood into their lives and just they haven't quite done that yet, or they're feeling like they're ready to do that, but they just maybe don't know where to start. What encouragement might you give them, or what relationships? I know we've already given several examples, but just some really like practical. Who could you start with? How could you start? What are some really simple ways to start cultivating those relationships and providing that safe space? Anne, I'll start with you.
I think that our listeners are probably already spiritual mothers,
Amen.
but they don't think like we don't think of it. Like I've said this, so many times about fruitfulness too. Like we think things that we do are like just being a nice person, or this is just, what you do to be good, or, whatever. But those are really life giving to people. And, I think that all of us women, all the men have these qualities of spiritual fatherhood, and they father people in many ways. And I think as women, we already are spiritual mothers. I think the key is for us to maybe kind of tune into that a little bit more and like try to recognize those areas and those relationships where we are really looking out for people, where we are aware and attentive when we see that someone's having a hard time. It's very Marian, right? Like it's the wedding at Cana. It's Mary. Like everybody is sitting around, getting drunk, doing their thing, and like there she is surveying the whole landscape. I mean, that's what we do as women, right? Like, we survey the whole landscape, and she hones in on like, uh-oh, like there's a problem, and this could be bad. Let me see if I can help. And so I just want to encourage all the women who are listening to be attentive, because I know that you are a great source of inspiration and comfort and safety for people. You just might not be thinking of it in that way.
Mm, that's that's so good. And I love the scriptural reference there to pray with that and bring that into your own prayer and ask the Lord what that looks like for you in your life. That's beautiful. How about you, Maria?
Well, I loved everything Aunt Anne said. Building on that a bit, I think just bringing it to prayer and really recognizing, because I think maybe when we think about spiritual motherhood, it feels very abstract and like, okay, spiritual motherhood, it's kind of this like fuzzy thing. But like bring it to prayer and like ask God to show you, especially what your gifts are in as a spiritual mother. Because I think we all have our own like ones that we're strongest in. And if you reflect and pray on that, that will come to you. Like for me, I know I'm a good listener, and that's something that I bring to my relationships. Patient. So like just kind of think about what those gifts are that you have in your life that God has given you, and thank God for those. Like thank him for giving those to you, because I think we forget to like appreciate the gifts that we have. And so to just identify that. And then secondly, I would say like building off what Anne said, like you don't have to go looking for it. Like it's right in front of you. So as you've identified
Mhm.
those a little bit deeper in yourself, like just notice it playing out in your relationships and your interactions, and perhaps like kind of take it to the next level, right? So like if you're a good listener, like offer, if you know if someone's going through a tough time, like let's get coffee. Or if you're really imaginative and you're you enjoy playing with kids, and let's I don't know, let's do a little play together or whatever. Like think about what those gifts are, what you enjoy, and then try and build on that in your different relationships.
I love those ideas. Yeah, to let the
Yeah.
Lord to show you like what are the relationships you've already sent me, because it is happening, and how can I one just recognize that and thank you so much for these gifts that you've given me, the relationships that you've given me, and then yeah, applying that, kind of taking it to the next level. I love that idea. And one that came to mind that I know that I certainly could do more of is I think whether that's through prayer or maybe you already know those women who are spiritual mothers to you, is just sending them a thank you note. I think just showing other women in your life that they have been spiritual mothers is one way to offer spiritual motherhood, back and recognizing that identity. And then I think too, it just naturally will likely inspire you to do that, in your life too. And so maybe that's a text or a call or a little, I love mail, getting that. I got a lot of friends who are pen pals, and it's just a really beautiful way to, brighten someone's day. And so, yeah, there's just so many ways to do that right here, right now. You don't have to go looking. You don't have to make it a grand adventure to find it, because it's just right there, where you are, where God has placed you. Ladies, I've really loved this conversation. It's given me truly so much to think about with, the aunts that I have. And I think, Maria, I wanted to maybe end just on this note too, that I think sometimes that, like you said, that biological motherhood, this doesn't replace that. It's not, it's different, distinctly different. And I think for someone like myself, or for Anne and other listeners who their biological mother isn't here on earth any longer, that this spiritual motherhood, I think it shows you even more that this doesn't replace that there's that the other women who are mothering you, are not a replacement for that, but a really beautiful, distinct relationship that can nurture some of those parts of your life. And so I'm just so grateful to the both of you for having this conversation. I hope to chat with you again someday, Maria. It was so nice to meet you via
having me
Zoom or the face. Yes. And Anne, thank you again so much for being on the podcast.
Always glad to be here.
Listeners, please know of our prayers for you wherever you are on the path of infertility. We are going to pray that this week your spiritual motherhood is just so vibrant and alive, and that the Lord is so present to you wherever you are at, and that you can also receive spiritual motherhood from those in your lives. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate, review, subscribe, and give today so that we can reach more listeners on the path of infertility. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. And most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.